What's going on, everybody? Gustav the 13th here with another video for the week on the 19th of March 2026. Keep in mind that we're going to actually be doing two this time because we do have another suit to talk about. But first things first, we have the mainline banner drop suit here, the Abigor, another Victory Zanscare suit going on. And if you're looking at this kit and you're like, oh, that's a raid. No, it's a general. We're at 650 again here. And an interesting setup. I definitely feel a little bit mixed about this thing, but let's go down the weapon line here. So 2400 power for the beam cutter. Beam cutter is actually interesting. No charge shot on this. It does pierce, and it legitimately just kind of shoots out a little bit of like a bladed beam on this. This is a transferable suit. It does have another version of this. Cannot utilize focus fire for increased damage, but staggers enemy for the regular attacks. Same general thing here. Suppressive blade-shaped beams are launched from a beam generator on the right arm. So that's the only thing that you have as a regular ranged thing. You do have another ranged attack, but it's the beam scythe being thrown. Both of these are at 275 meters. It's weird that they just couldn't decide to give it the extra 25 to just be 300. The only thing that's 300 meters on this thing is actually just the compound multi-eye sensor. Your old visual receptors over here. But the beam scythe itself, interesting. Instant knockdown. 2 swings, 2700 for the power, cooldown time of 2.5. Also has aerial melee on it. Both of these do, actually. This and the guitar, which, by the way, fucking guitar, fucking punch daggers on this. Hell yeah. Several things about this I don't really like. The neutral on this is kind of whack. The downswing has a lot of wind up, but again, aerial melee on that, pretty good for pursuit. The thrown beam scythe itself can actually be guided a little bit, not a whole lot. And it does have a very big hitbox, so it's a little bit hard to finagle around stuff, so keep that in mind. You do have your compound eye sensor so that you can kind of keep things spotted for yourself. Always good to have that on one way or the other. Then we have something interesting here, and it's interesting because this is a gimmick that probably should have been around for anything that has a naginata, or just generally a dual bladed thing in general. We have the defense beam scythe version, which is literally a windmill spin that it does in place. So pressing the attack button will spin conjoined beam scythes in front of the unit, briefly taking a guard stance while performing a melee attack. If taking melee damage while guarding, the attack is deflected, and if taking a ranged attack, the damage and reaction are nullified. So, literal windmill defensive attack for anyone who's played Saga Frontier 2 or literally anything that has a windmill kind of thing. Pretty hype to add this in here, and all the streams are just like, why doesn't the Gilgug have this? Why doesn't it though? Note that this weapon, while this weapon is selected, melee priority is reduced, and some damage cannot be nullified, such as from rod type weapons or heavy attacks. So, a little bit dangerous to do in front of certain units. And I will say this right out of the gate, you know, even though you can do some decent damage to it, RF Camphor's at this cost. It has every other answer to this bullshit that it's got going on, outside of kind of this, but not really. So, rough bid. Transformation wise though, we have something a little bit interesting outside of the cutter. So the cutter's normal. The head beam cannon on this is neat. So you have a 2-round burst for its regular shot, and then the charge shot is actually a heavy stagger. But on top of all that, you have the beam cutter being used as a defensive weapon. Using this will temporarily emit beams from the back in both arms, forming a beam barrier in front of the unit. While the barrier is formed, ram attack power increases, and if the barrier takes ranged attacks, resulting damage and stagger are reduced. So, from what I was testing, and we'll try it again when we get into practice, it seems like it just gives you straight up like an extra 1500 if the beam's barrier hasn't been tampered or shot at, as opposed to doing the regular impact outside of that. Another interesting thing to note here is that this is a transformation suit that actually does still get space priority for compatibility, which is not very common. I think legitimately the only other one right now outside of this guy that does that is actually the double Zeta. Did not notice that before, but kind of a neat note to keep in mind. Now, quite a laundry list of skills, but first let's look at the stats here. We have 26k for the health. Ballistic beam and melee resistance are 22, 24, and 30 respectively. Range strength is 15, melee strength of 50 baseline. Movement speed of 140, top speed of 225, thruster gauge of 80, and a turning speed of 78. all these are very much on the cusp of stuff in a situation that lets you really get them over in a way that you'll probably notice pretty readily. That being said, thruster gauge 80 is fine, considering that you have like Force Injector 3 and a couple other things, Flight Control Program 4 and Glide Structure, so you got a lot of hang time and it's taking off a lot of a reduction for your boost and stuff like that when you're going around the air. Emergency Evasion System 2, so you got 2 rolls out of that. Fall Prevention System on top of having the Glide Structure, Anti-Blast Stabilizer, Melee Composite System, Isaac Ambec 2, Maneuver Armor 1, Force Injector 3, Aerial Melee System 2, Offense System 1, Damage Control Level 2, Transformation Flight, Special Shoulder Add-on Buffer for 30% on that, which, you know, the shoulder's pretty sizable. That being said, you're probably gonna get middled and tracked really bad, so that really gonna do a whole lot, but better than nothing. And then Transformation Optimizer increases turning performance when changing from a transformed state back to normal. So for this, we have the usual stuff as well. Ram Attack Level 1, Transformation Flight, Damage Control 2, and then of course this version also has Shock Dampeners. So kind of attacks on that. Special Shoulder Add-on Buffer is also coming into play a little bit more, as it's pretty much like the front of the unit, right? And then looking at the enhancement list then, we have +1 to melee resistance, +1 to melee modifier, oh my god, +100 to unit HP, and complex expansion comes at the end at 2380. For the unlockables then, for gold chests, we have +5 to melee resistance and +5 to melee modifier. So between that and this, you get it up to, what, 56? A little bit easier to even get to 60. Honestly, you're probably going to want to put a lot in there to make the melee pay off. But consider some of the other shit that's already at this cost. It's nice that we're back to 650. RF Camphor kind of makes that not so nice. And the interesting thing is that because of the way that this is a transformable suit and does not have flaps, it's kind of emboldening other suits to come back out to play. We saw a fair amount of full armor ground data and a couple other things. There's a lot of gross shit at this cost that's either slightly a better transformable than it, or that does better DPS without having to put in as much effort. And you're gonna hear me say that a lot as we get into the practice round, because like I said, I love a lot of stuff going on with this suit. It's really cool that it's in the game, but overall, brother, please, this shit fucking sucks. So, things to keep in mind: piercing shot, regular stun, not too shabby on that. Let's get this about the impact out of the way too. So 2k on that, right? And then we get in on this guy. Yeah, 3500. So straight up 1500 extra damage for doing that impact. Double guitars, not too bad with the damage there. And then, like I said, instant knockdown for the scythe. Scythe having a very big reach and being able to swing twice. Not a lot of like forward push on there for that downswing. A lot of wind up, as you can see there on the guitar downswing. Ooh. But in general, not too bad. I think the nicer thing is just how quickly the ready up on the throwable scythe is, and of course you can use that as a lead-in. But that, you know, I think the bigger thing for a lot of this is that you're gonna be incentivized to use your neutrals a lot more, especially because you have an instant stagger weapon, or instant knockdown weapon with the scythe itself. And then for the spinning beam scythe, so reduce damage, but you can deflect stuff with that. Very nice. On paper, especially because this has offense system and all this other stuff, sounds good, right? And then you think about all the shit that has cables and heavy attacks and other things that just kind of hit through all your shit, and suddenly not so great. But put that beam cutter on, get discharged, heavy stagger on that. Very long cooldown for it. The transformation version of that also still piercing. But in general, not too bad for all that. Let's see here a little bit of how much it can actually guide that. Very slight. You can't really cut it as tight as you can for like the victory and shit like that, which is, it's fine. It's a giant scythe, right? It'd be kind of weird if you could. 3 bursts for that, which means it probably does do a full stun on a regular unit with no damage control. But that overheat time, because you can do a heavy stagger with that, it does kind of get punished. So, you know, something to keep in mind. But in general, pretty flexible suit. There were some people in our chat that were trying to say that it was more so akin to like the 3A, but just a little bit more aggro because of the way that the melee and stuff works. And like, I kind of get that. But compared to this and the reset that has, while also having less risk of knocking friendlies down and all that other stuff, I will tell you straight up right now, outside of just missing some of that aerial melee, I'd probably rather do the 3A. You know what I'd rather do either than either of those? The fucking Doga sleeves. It's just another thing for us to just kite and fuck with at that point. But we do have a match in this, and by that I mean I slogged through doing matches in this thing for like 2 hours and they didn't go well. But we did get a win finally, and that is a round that we are going to show right around here. 1 month later. Eh. Oh boy. God. I'm just gonna get held down for heavy attacks all day. Oh. My lord. Oh my god, no. And I got no leggies. There we go. At least he's gone. Oh, that clan tag. What the fuck? Oh. Oh no. Oh. Oh dear. They're all balled up right now. That sucks. Is he actually gonna plant? Oh my god, he's gonna go pilot, and this dickhead's gonna try to go plant. I hate all of you. Thanks. You guys just fucked us. Like, there's nothing we can do right now because we're gonna be short 2 people in the last minute. Oh my god. Oh, he stopped it though. I got it. It's a miracle. Oh my god, what are you trying to do? Yeah, you shitting me? Oh my god, shoot him please. Ugh, get me out of here, dude. Freedom. So yeah, overall, I get what they're trying to do with this suit, and it is kind of interesting, but no. There are infinitely simpler ways to get those kind of results with a lot less effort. Not super duper worth it. And that was our run in the Abbey. I'm not gonna call it the full name, but bias outside of frustrating matches aside, like I said, there are a lot of things at this cost that this isn't going to replace. It is a lot of really good gimmicks. I'll be honest with you, I kind of hope that the spinning scythe thing does bring way to having spinning naginatas and other stuff on other suits now that it's been introduced as a weapon on a new, mobile suit. It tends to be the way of it when it comes to monumental adjustments and stuff. So, keep an eye out for stuff like that, since this is essentially the test bed. I do like the idea of having, a lot of forward momentum with that neutral to get stuff on the ground. It just doesn't really feel like this has a whole lot to follow through with that's going to do a lot. Even when we have a lot of melee boost on this, putting it up into the 70s or whatever, it's hard to get a very solid payoff out of this outside of, just the fun of having a really raw, full tilt aggressive suit. Can you go wrong in this? Sometimes. Is it bad though? No. And I do think, again, it's very cool. And a lot of the gimmicks in this, make for some promising possibilities in the future. But overall, this is not a suit that you really have to spin for. It is not essential by any means. And to be honest, I'm kind of expecting more people to jump at the other suit that we're going to be talking about in the other video, which is funny because it's literally just an Ace Gyaradoga suit. But it's a raid, so they kind of allowed it to do some gross stuff and put a lot of extra skills on it in a way that's kind of interesting. And it's going to be our lead into the next video, depending on which way that you watch this. But that being said, this being a 3-star suit, it does have its own special banner. Not as expensive as the 4-star suits that we just got gouged for the past 2 weeks, right? So, again, if you're saving up for other stuff later on, rest assured, not really worth losing sleep over when it comes to this suit. And honestly, even the other one. Like, I think it's going to be neat. I don't think it's going to be as strong as, like, the sleeves or other stuff when it comes to just the versatility and output that it gets from going up certain levels. But that's probably for the best, so that we actually have some respite for saving up for other big stuff that comes into the spring and summer. I try to do these one way or the other, either by using friends' accounts or otherwise, just because I want to put videos up on them. I want to discuss them one way or another, regardless of if I like them or not. But that is going to be the long and short of it for the Abbey. Good luck if you do spin on this. If you did get it and you're kind of hyped, still be hyped. Obviously, we're going to see people do some pretty crazy shit with this one way or the other, and it is not a bad suit. This is probably something what we'll probably see more commonly for people who are burnt out on the 3A or other similar generals at this cost range anyway. So, good luck out there if you start running it. This is Goose on the 13th. We got one more to go. So hopefully I'll see you in that other video.